Hey, Dustin Hawkinsmith here from Penn Live. We're back with another wrestling podcast here on the PennLive Wrestling Podcast. It's a big one, part of our Girls Wrestling Week here on the website. Terry Steiner joins us now. He's the head coach of the United States women's national team. Just got back from Tokyo after an incredible performance at the Olympic Games. U.S. women won 4 medals in all, finished as a runner-up to Japan in the Olympic team standings. Terry, thanks for taking some time to talk about this team, what you were able to accomplish in Tokyo, and, to bring it back to why we're here on Penn Live, just what a performance like that can mean in the grand scheme of women's wrestling in America.
Well, it's important, right? I mean, it's very important for us to continue to put out a great product. I mean, people like to be associated with winners, right? And we have to continue to strive for that, and that is the goal, and it always is, right? Is to be the dominant force in women's wrestling as Team USA, and obviously you can see that we have quite a challenge on our hands, right? I mean, Japan has set the standard in this sport for many years. We do feel as a country that we are on the precipice of catching them and hopefully passing them. But that's not going to go without a fight, right? But we've accepted that challenge. We understand that. The girls understand what's at stake and what's in front of us, and what needs to be done to climb to that top step. But it is important. It is important to win, right? I mean, when you get to a certain level, winning is important, right? And because it affects not only the individual, but it affects the entire program and the nation, right? And that's those are all great things. And that's what we are striving for, but you don't focus on it on a daily basis, right? I mean, the end goal is one thing, but you have to have a correct process in place. And I think that's the thing I'm most proud about this group, and the group you saw in Tokyo and our national team right now is they're a very driven group, and they're very professional in how they go about their business. And when you have that in place and that kind of a culture in place, sky's the limit on what can happen. But make no mistake about it, it's not going to happen without a challenge. Japan is not going to lay down and let us step up to that top step without a huge fight.
Yeah, before the Olympics, you had been writing a blog, writing some updates for people. And you mentioned that this team was the best national team that the U.S. has produced. To what extent did they kind of validate what you saw going into it and what you believed about them going into the games themselves?
Well, I think they validated everything, right? I mean, we had some missteps. There's no doubt, right? I mean, we would, look at those performances, and they're unbelievable performances that we had. But Adelaide Gray fell short, in her final. Helen Maroulis in her semifinal against Japan. Really, there was not a point scored in that match, and that's a hard way to lose a match, right? Is not a point scored and someone just cut the criteria on a passivity call, right? And then, Sarah Hildebrandt had 7-1 in the semifinals, and just in matches like that, you just want to have it just wasn't meant to be that day. I don't know, but she definitely, tactics changed during the course of that match, and I think if we could go back and change that in her mind mentally, and then continue to wrestle and continue to, I think we got into a state of mind where we were trying not to lose that match instead of trying to win that match. And it seems like it's the same thing, but it's not. I mean, you have to be out in those matches attacking, trying to win, trying to score points. When that mindset starts to change, maybe through a scare, I think what happened was, we knew that Sun had a great headlock, and we got underneath her for the one time, and she threw us in that front headlock. Now it was 7-3. And I think it scared us a little bit, and all of a sudden we got on the defensive, and we're now just trying to survive and not lose that wrestling match. And that's a hard way to win matches and be consistent, because what happens is you start wrestling match instead of wrestling your own match, and doing the things that you can do to keep someone on the defense and keep them reacting to you. So, we had some missteps along the way like that, but overall, Justin, it was an unbelievable performance. I mean, until this point, with the women's program in USA Wrestling, we had 5 Olympic medals. And this Olympiad alone, we have 4 more, right? And so I think we made a huge statement to the world, and that we are here, and I think they understand that, it's not just the senior team. A month ago, our cadets went to the World Championships and won the Cadet World Championship, right? And next week we go to the Junior World Championships, and we feel very strong about this team going to the Junior World Championships. So I think, as an overall program, we feel like we're in a very good spot right now.
Well, let me kind of start from the top. I do want to circle back around to, the idea of bouncing back, the idea of handling losses in a professional way. You mentioned some of the sting there, but let me just start at the top with Tamira Mensah-Stock. Obviously winning gold at 68 kilograms is a huge thing, but then, she got an interesting ride well into the mainstream of culture on morning talk shows. And, I think everybody was kind of captivated, by that video of her draped in the American flag and just showing all kinds of like crazy positivity as a coach sitting back. And I'm sure that your room has felt that positivity from her on a daily basis, but to watch her get this ride for the sport and for her, what was that like for you to see somebody, wrestling doesn't get a lot of mainstream attention. It's just kind of the way that it is, for her to get that ride and for her to achieve that.
I'll tell you, it couldn't happen to a better person, right? And we've known this about Tamira for many years. I mean, what she brings into that practice room every day, the positive attitude, the smile on her face, just the loving, caring way about her, is infectious, right? And we've known that, and I'm just so happy for her right now that the rest of the world knows that. I mean, she's a person that across the globe, no matter what country we go to, even our foreign friends or enemies, so to speak, right? Our opponents, they're enamored with her, right? There's not a person around the world that doesn't love her. She's impossible not to love, right? I mean, because she loves back, and she just oozes that through her smile and her handshakes and just how she approaches people and treats people. Being competitive on the mat is one thing, but she definitely switches that switch on and off very quickly, and it's just that's how sports should be, and she's a great role model, and so for her to be getting the attention she is just incredible, and I'm so happy for her because she deserves it, and we need this. We, as a country, we need this. As a world, we need this. I mean, and that's the great thing what sport does, is it unites people and it brings people together. It puts our differences to the side, right? And we focus on the good in each other, right? And the good in what people bring. And Tamira is just a great role model for that. She exudes that kind of attitude and persona. So I'm so happy for her and the success. And it doesn't surprise me at all that America has fallen in love with this girl, because we fell in love with her a long time ago.
Picture, I think one of the interesting barriers that wrestling has in general, but I think just if you're, say, a young girl and you've thought about wrestling a little bit, one of the things that probably feels pretty intimidating, like you have to be this mean, tough, strong, kind of person to participate in this sport. I'm sure it wasn't really a thought as this is happening, but as you're able to reflect on that a little bit, to see somebody achieve, like you said, everybody loves a winner, but B, maybe disarm some of those, I don't want to call them stereotypes because there's some truth to them, to be able to disarm that reputation that wrestling has and make it feel more attainable. Do you feel like that's maybe one of the aftershocks of Tamira's run here?
Yeah, I hope so, because it is one of the stereotypes, right, of the sport, is that you have to be tough and you have to be mean and you can't talk to that person, and this person's trying to beat you and you should not like them. And that's not what sport is about. Right? That is not it. I mean, we have to learn to turn on our competitive juices when we step on that wrestling mat and compete to win. And we also have to learn how, no matter what happens in those 6 minutes, we have to turn that switch off and be a human being again on and off that mat, and how we treat people and how we move forward. And we have, we just have a great team of leaders like that. There's not one of these people on this Olympic team that hasn't shown that kind of attitude and mindset. And we talk about it a lot, right? I mean, their attitudes and their mindsets and their reactions and what they're doing on and off the mat is going to sell this sport way more than an aging coach talking about how good this sport is for someone. Right? And so young girls should know that there is an unbelievable opportunity in the sport of wrestling, not just to learn the sport of wrestling, but hopefully, teach you how to be a young, strong female that can stand on your own 2 feet and survive in a society that is a lot of times hard, right? It's harsh. The realities of life are very hard at times, right? And we need to know how to live through adversities with a smile on our face and know how to handle that. And that's the greatest thing that this sport does, is it's a great teacher of life skills and knowing how to deal with adversity and stand back up and do your job. And that's why I think the sport is so great for men and women, for young boys and young girls. It's a great teacher of life skills that goes far beyond the wrestling mat. And we always talk as a coaching staff, and when I'm ever in front of a group of coaches, I always stress that point, is if the only thing that we do as a coach is teach someone how to win an Olympic medal, and they go out into life and don't know how to handle adversity, and they have failed relationships and failed careers and things like that, and they're unhappy in what they're doing, then we've failed miserably as coaches, right? I mean, this sport should teach a lot more than just how to win a wrestling match. And so I'm happy that people are seeing the value of the sport of wrestling on young adults, because it truly is a sport like no other, I believe. And I may be biased, but I really think that this sport teaches the ups, how to deal with the ups and downs better than anything else. And that's why you coach, right? I mean, the medals, the championships, those are fleeting moments, and they come and go. But hopefully we're building strong people through this sport and changing their lives for the better because of it.
Speaking of life changing, you also wrote prior to the Olympics that, going back to your early tenure working with this team, that this has had a life changing impact on you as well, that you see working with these wrestlers as beyond a job, beyond coaching, and into, I think, as you put it, civil rights and women's rights. Can you just walk me through whatever it's been 20 plus years of evolution for you yourself by being attached to this sport?
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, when you get involved in something, you think you're going to step into it and change it and make things better, and and instill put your stamp on things. But what you realize over time is that it really changes you too, right? And this job has been very hard at times. But very challenging at times, but it's also been so rewarding, and what it's given me, not just myself, but my family, my wife, my daughter. Um, it's just been unbelievable. And it was just quickly to go through that story and how I got here, and it was back in 2002, the spring of 2002, and I was at the time an assistant coach, wrestling coach at the University of Wisconsin, and I was really just looking to get into a head coaching position. My trajectory was always to be a Division I head coach, and that's where I was headed. And there was a job for opening at the time at a Division I school, and I called USA Wrestling and talked to Rich Bender, our executive director, was then and still is. But I talked to Rich about giving me a recommendation for this job, and he said, I sure will. I said, what do you think about this job? And I said, what job? And he said, women's national team coach. And I said, Rich, I don't know if you got the right guy. I mean, I said, I don't know. He said, will you listen? And reluctantly, I said, I'll listen. But I was really, like, I can't believe he asked me that, And so I came home, and my wife asked me how with Rich went. And I said, that went well. He threw this at me, and I told her, well, they asked about the women's national team coach position, and right away she was like, yeah, why wouldn't you look at it? And I was like, did you hear what I just said? And she said, yeah, but why wouldn't you look at it? It's an opportunity in the sport of wrestling. And I kind of left the house that afternoon, like thinking, she doesn't understand. She doesn't understand the whole significance of this. And so I left the house, and I went to my twin brother Troy's house, and he was also a coach with me at the University of Wisconsin at the time. And we were at his house, and I was so worried about if I would accept a job like this, would I ever be allowed to come back into college athletics? Because at the time, college wrestling was losing programs left and right, and losing numbers, and the blame was going on female athletics, right? That they were cutting men's sports to add women's sports, and the whole Title IX issue is alive and well, and just women's athletics really took a hammer on that, and so my brother said, if you would leave college athletics to take this opportunity, he said, you're going to come back into college athletics as a head coach and an assistant coach. You're going to be hired by administrators that want to know you can work with everyone, and then head coaches who may be closed-minded on it. He said, so I don't know if that's a good reason not to take this position either. And so I kind of left his house the same way I left my own. Is like the two closest people in my life at that time were my wife and my twin brother. And it's like neither one of them are helping me out here. I was looking for a way out, and I wasn't finding it. So I really had to dig deeper and just ask myself the question, why is it that I want to stay in the sport of wrestling and make this my life's work? I mean, what is it about the sport of wrestling that has engaged me and wants me to stay in? And I think I probably answered to myself like most wrestling coaches answer to themselves, right? We believe in the sport of wrestling, and we believe in the character development and the life skills it teaches. And that's why we're in it. And so my next question to myself was, that's really why I'm doing what I'm doing. Why does it make a difference if it's a man or a woman in front of me? And that, at that point, I started to realize that this is a viable option, and I really need to take some time and really think about this. And I told Rich the next day, I just said, Rich, I don't know if I'm going to take this position, but I need time. And I said, I know that the girls need someone that are going to be 100% behind them. I just don't know if I'm the guy, and I'm not going to take the position if I can't get to that point mentally. And so it was about 2 to 3 weeks later, and my wife and I went out to dinner, and we were driving home, and driving home talking about this more, and I just couldn't. I was so worried about what my peers were going to think about how this was going to change my trajectory in my life and my coaching career, and she said, I really hate how you're thinking right now. It's not the first time, right? But she said, she said I was a young girl in the late 60s, early 70s. And I was sitting in a high school gymnasium in rural North Dakota. We both come from the state of North Dakota. And she said, I was listening to people boo and ridicule and harass. She said, what do you think I was watching? I said, I don't know what you were watching. She said, I was watching a girls' basketball game. And she said, this is the beginning of something. It truly wasn't the beginning, but it was the beginning from a standpoint in the fall of 2001. And women's wrestling was named, added to the Olympic family. So that's why USA Wrestling at that point was wanting to hire a national team coach, because now it was an Olympic sport, and it made sense to go and then for the USOC and USA Wrestling. And so anyways, she said, this is the beginning of something. And she said, USA Wrestling is not just looking for a coach. They're looking for an advocate. They're looking for someone that's going to stand up and fight the fight. And so these athletes can just go about their business, and that someone else can deal with all the other mess. And she said, and I think what really got me was the next thing she said, was she just said, you have a young daughter. She said, what if she wants to follow in your footsteps? And right then I knew it was the right thing to do. And I called Rich the next day and said, I'll take the job. And then I thought I'd worked through everything mentally, emotionally. I thought I had it all figured out. And all of a sudden I'm in the room with the athletes for the first time. And now it's like I don't know how to explain my own sport. I don't know how to coach anymore. I don't know what I should say. Do I say chest? Do I say breast? Can I touch here? Can I touch there? I mean, and I left that practice thinking, wow, this is not their problem. They've been wrestling with boys on their teams and high school teams forever, and that's how they got involved in the sport. And this is my problem. This is my issue. This is my fear, right? And I need to get over it quick, because now I'm already in this position. And so I just said, from this point forward, I'm going to treat them like athletes in front of me, and they need to know a couple of things. They need to know I'm very clear in my boundaries. I'm here to coach you and help you and assist you in your goals and dreams. And I may stick my foot in my mouth, but I need to, coach how I coach, and I'll learn along the way. And there was a lot of times that, I'm sure I wasn't the best teacher at times, because I was caught up in that. But it did help me from a standpoint. Just do your job as you know how, right? And you may have to change and adapt some things along the way, which I had. There's a difference between coaching men and women, but ultimately it's not. And there's not so much difference. Coaching is coaching, and teaching is teaching, and motivating is motivating. And so, it's been a tremendous journey that I've been on the last 19 years now, going into my 20th year. But it's been challenging at times. It's been, very rewarding, right? And now to see, at the beginning, it seemed like there was so many obstacles and so many people against it, and to see it moving in the other direction, where it seems like we have an army of people behind us, and there's a country behind us, there's an organization behind us that will do anything to help move us forward, and to see those things taking a turn is really spectacular. And I feel like I'm on the best ride anyone could ever be on right now. And I'm so happy for this next generation of athletes coming up, because the opportunities for them are going to be limitless. And the opportunities are opening at the state level, at the college level, and it's just going to continue, whether they want to be athletes, whether they want to be coaches. I mean, there's just so many opportunities opening up, and it's just wonderful to see.
Without question, I think, the nation is in a different place. The idea of women's wrestling is in a far different place. And I think 18 years have come a long way on that. But I do think let me play amateur psychologist now. I do think there are still fears among coaches who haven't worked with girls before. There are still I think fears of what you're describing, of how to work with girls, and the fear of taking the wrong steps. And as you mentioned, a fear of missteps, for you, eventually, you had to ditch that fear. But I think, to some leaders of boys wrestling programs, the fear to me is the fear of changing anything that's going to get in the way of winning this particular thing or doing this particular thing. Like I think the reluctance, you know, on a small sort of individual level is just that fear of changing anything.
Yeah. Well, we have to change, right? Change is inevitable, and we have to continue to change. And you know, just what happened with this group um, over the course of the last 4 months, you know, whether it changed because of it changed kind of because of the situation we're in with COVID. Um, we've never had national team camps together with the men's program and the Greco-Roman program and the women's program. Never. And all of a sudden, we were forced in a situation because of just keeping our human resources together as an organization and helping these teams. And we decided that, you know, if we can, you know, let's put our national team camps together and keep everyone in the same location. It just makes everything easier. And all of a sudden, we put these athletes alongside each other on the mat. Not every workout, but some workouts during the course of a 10-day camp, you know, 5-6 workouts together, and it was amazing what happened and what we saw. And you know, the first time we did it in April, the first time we brought the Olympians in together, we had the men's freestyle program and the women's freestyle program together in camp, and it was just the Olympians. And we brought them in, and that week we had 2 practices together, and the other practices were separated. But when we brought those 2 teams together, it was transformational, really. It was something of beauty, and I told the athletes that. I said, you know, I said back in 2003 we were getting ready for the World Championships, and it was either the Greco or men's freestyle program, but I can't remember which one. But they were finishing up practice, and we were starting practice, and and so the guys are kind of meandering out of the room, but there's some sitting down at the end watching, and I'm starting to run our warm up, and we're starting to get into drills, and all of a sudden at the end of the room there was just a lot of just chatter and laughing and giggling, and I walked down there, and because really they were down there making fun of the girls, and you know, just really, I walked down there and I just said, guys, if you can't respect this, then I need to ask you to leave the room. Right? I mean, we're also getting ready for World Championships, and we need a good energy in here and everything like that. So, but what happened in April when we brought those teams together was so impressive, and how they were just working with each other and working hard and laughing and having a good time, and really there was no boundary, there was no barrier, there was no separation, and just working together, and it was just a thing of beauty. And I told them all, I said that the difference that, you know, these 17, 18 years have made is unbelievable. And I said, I just want to commend all of you. And you know, and some of it comes from just, it's a generational change, right? A lot of these gentlemen on the men's team, they don't know wrestling without women. Right? I mean, they've always seen women alongside them. Or, you know, back in 2002, 2003, you know, women's wrestling was a very new thing to a lot of people, and that change was hard, right? And but now they've embraced it, you know, and it's just something. There's a mutual respect for one another, and they understand that everyone's working hard to accomplish goals here, but they're just learning from each other and understanding that, you know, that, hey, there's talent on both sides of these, you know, and we can learn something from each other no matter who we are. And, it was just so fantastic to see, and I think that they definitely, what America saw, and how they helped each other, and then how they performed in Tokyo, that was definitely a direct result of each other being together. There's no doubt in my mind that they influenced each other in a positive way, and they moved each other forward. And you know, you never know what the difference is, right? I mean, the difference between winning and losing is so minute, and but there's no doubt about it that that had a huge impact on both teams and both programs. And really, I also, Greco was also in that because we were in camps with them, and that energy amongst all three styles was just fantastic. And I think it's something that will be changed forever within U.S. Wrestling and how we go about our business. And at least it's something that I will always push for from my side. And because I think it was very real and it was moving for sure.
Well, let me just shift gears. I just got one more question for you. I just wanted to talk about Helen Maroulis, Adeline Gray, in particular. Those two, I think it's fair to call them titans of the sport itself. And I don't really care if it's men's or women's. I don't think you can even make that distinction. But just when you think of them and what they've been part of, as you're describing the progress that's been made, what do you think of them and their role in pushing your program and pushing the sport forward?
There's no doubt that those two individuals have had an impact so far reaching, I think it's really hard to measure, right? And what they've done for opportunities for women in this country and within this sport. They're both such strong leaders. And, and I talked about this the other night after the Olympics were over. We had a little celebration, and I just talked about how amazed I was at Adeline. She walked off that final match where you knew she was crushed, and the match just did not go her way, and it was against Raderfaken from Germany, who is definitely just an unbelievable opponent and an unbelievable person. But Adeline had not lost to her before, and it just wasn't meant to be. Just things happen for a reason. But she walked off that mat completely disappointed and frustrated, and she stepped in front of a minute later and spoke so eloquently and left emotion out of it, and just when you can handle defeat like that, that shows me way more than what a medal does, right? And she just is just an unbelievable person and a huge ambassador for this sport and for young women across this country, regardless of sport. Adeline Gray is a transformational person, right? And she's going to be a leader no matter where she's at, no matter what she's doing. She's going to be a leader in that. And so, yeah, she's a huge impact. And Helen is the same way. She has her own way about it. But Helen, there's only one that's the first, right? And she was first ever Olympic champion, and that will go down as history, as one of the greatest matches ever against a great champion, Sayori Yoshida. But she showed her true colors this past week in Tokyo, right? She what she did, the adversities that she's gone through the last 4 or 5 years. I think when she won in Rio, it was a dream come true. And then it was all of a sudden, okay, I'm an Olympic champion now, but now who am I? But who am I really? I'm an Olympic champion, but okay, who am I now? As a person, as a human being. And she went through some struggle there, and then she had some physical struggle and things like that, and some, concussions and things like that. But really, to find her way through that, and the credit all belongs to Helen, right? Because she's the one that stayed on this journey and found her way through those adversities, because she felt that she was doing the thing that she was called here to do. And for her to step on that, I'll tell you, John Smith called me the morning of her competition over in Tokyo, and we talked. He asked about how's Helen doing, and I said we're going to know this first match because she had drawn from China, and it was a very tough opponent. And I said we're going to know this first match, how Helen was doing. And when she stepped on that mat, I knew the first 15 seconds she was ready to go. And so, she fell short in the semifinal, but again, there was no points scored in that match. It was a technical SD call that was given the other way, and we did some things I think that we could have changed that, but we didn't. And she went through that. And even in the quarterfinals, she beat an opponent from Ukraine that had beaten her, Tatiana Kitt, that beat her 8 weeks ago, like 9-2, and we turned the tables and beat her 8-0. I believe in the quarterfinals, and so Helen was on fire and wrestling at the top of her game, and she has nothing to hang her head about, and I think she knows it. And then the greatest thing about it is, I think, through this process, I think when she won the Olympic gold in 2016, she gave the credit to a lot of other people. And I think through this process and coming back and doing what she did and gaining that second Olympic medal, the first, and right now the only two-time Olympic medalist for the USA Women's program, she gained belief in herself, and now understands that really she is the true talent and she is the hero, and this was about her overcoming those adversities. It wasn't about other people getting her there. She truly did this one on her own, and I'm so happy for her to come to that realization and to feel that and to feel that sense of accomplishment for herself. That's worth more than any medal could ever do. Right? And so I'm so proud of her, and we'll see where that she continues. She has not said that this is it, right? And so who knows if we'll see her continuing in the wrestling mat, but that's her decision. She doesn't have anything more to prove to anyone, and I don't think even to herself. I think she's really proven to herself that she can do whatever she says. And that's the beauty of it. From my perspective, as looking at her like a daughter, I mean, that's the beauty of it.
Terry Steiner, head coach of the United States women's national team, takes some time to highlight, that performance in Tokyo, what the U.S. women were able to do. Helen Marola's Adeline Gray, such an incredible run for your team. And really, I appreciate your thoughts just on the state of women's wrestling today, and the brief history lesson of just what can happen in 2 decades and what can happen in maybe in the next 2 decades. So I appreciate your time. I know you're probably travel weary from making the trip back. So, it's I think it's big for, some of the girls and women who are tuning into this project. I'm calling it Girls Wrestling Week on PennLive. You can access that PennLive.com/highschoolsports/wrestling. I think people, would have a great interest in your experience in the sport. And that goes, I think, as I mentioned before, coaches as well. So thank you for your input. I think, I think a lot of people were able to learn something from you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate those kind words. And I'm just so happy to see that people are seeing the value of this sport. And I've talked about it like this before. Like, women's wrestling is somewhat like religion. Right? We can talk to people forever about what this sport can do and how it can help them and this and that, just like we do with faith and religion. But until people see the value in it, it doesn't matter, right? And once they see the value in it, you don't have to say another word, right? And I think that's what's happening is people are seeing the value in the sport of wrestling on young adults, and there's nothing greater from my perspective is we're starting to see that maybe in a mainstream scale, and that's beautiful. So I think that there will come a time, going back to where we started, there will come a time when the U.S. dominates the world of women's wrestling. There's no doubt in my mind, and I don't know if I'll still be here, but there's no doubt that day is coming, and I'm so happy to be a part of that, part of that journey and this process along the way. But I'm grateful for everything and to be in the position I'm in, and it's been an awesome ride.
You go one more time, Terry Steiner, U.S.
Yeah.
Women's National Team coach. Thank you for being with us, and thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next time here on the PennLive Wrestling Podcast.